2 touchdowns, and some comparisons to his championship LSU team. Take a listen.
Not just what we're doing out there on the field, but just the way we carry ourselves, just the way we treat each other. 2019, when I won the championship at LSU, it's the same type of vibe. Just the team just together, fighting for one another every single game, and it definitely feels the same here.
We can't wear sunglasses on the show anymore. We can't. That guy. Holy cow!
And we said it last week. I'll say it again. He's one of the best receivers in NFL history. Yes. I know he needs a longer career to move up the ranks, but as far as who are the best players to ever play their position, their peak versus peak, he go toe to toe with a lot of the all-time greats.
Okay. I think he has not had fantastic quarterbacks.
Well, right.
Good.
No, he makes it great.
Right. He's never had to deal with horrific quarterbacking except for when Cousins got hurt last year.
Right.
But he's never had a season with like
which a lot of
all-pro, 100%.
Yeah. So you ready to believe in the Vikings?
Last week I said all the superhero quarterbacks are in the AFC except for my guy Stafford. I don't think anyone else, and I know you don't Brew, I know you disagree with me about Stafford, that's fine, but just, so then that makes the point even stronger. You know what I mean? That in the AFC, I wouldn't believe that a team, even a team as well coached, as well put together as the Vikings, could win 3 straight playoff games where you're at a disadvantage of the most important position on the field.
Right.
In the NFC, I don't know how big the gap between Sam Darnold with Kevin O'Connor and this team is to the other guy, Jared Goff or Jalen Hurts or the other guys. And so they are incredibly well coached. They have one A triple plus receiver and one A minus receiver in Addison. They overcame the loss of the all-pro left tackle. They absolutely are a very live team.
Well, the comparison to the LSU team, this might not come into play, but Burrow was very doubted at that point. He had been beaten out by Justin Fields at Ohio State, so he transferred. Wasn't special necessarily his first year at LSU, and then all of a sudden he has this great year. I'm not saying Darnold is him, but you know what I'm saying? A quarterback that has been doubted and questioned for years. The thing about Minnesota, coach, and I like him. I mean, I do. My pick is Green Bay. I feel good about that. I like Philly and Detroit better than them. But the one thing about Minnesota, they haven't beaten, like, the elite. They haven't faced most of the elite teams.
Green Bay, right?
Yes. But, most people would not put Green Bay in that top tier. Detroit's beaten them. And then they haven't played Buffalo, Kansas City, or Baltimore. They've beaten Green Bay and Houston. So that's the one thing, like, they haven't really proven themselves.
But the Seahawks were playing for their season.
Can we drill down a little bit further here? So they're on an 8-game winning streak. Mm-hmm. The combined record is 40-65 of the teams they beat, which is a 361 win percentage.
What do you want them to do? Make the schedule?
No, but they're about to play 2 teams with a combined record of 23-6.
Well, they just played a team with a great record. 8-6. A team fighting for playoffs.
So
Nick loves Gene.
The two teams that they beat are each over 1 game over 500 in that 8-game streak. But now we're going to play 2 teams that are combined 23-6. So we're going to see whether or not they're for real in the next 2 weeks. Not taking anything away from winning 8 games straight, but it's not like the who's who.
No, that's true. But also when they played Detroit, it came down to a field goal at the gun. They lost by 2, or field goal in the last minute. What's up, Wilds?
As you know, it's a segment I'm trying to introduce on the show. Vibe alert. Great vibes out of Minnesota.
Oh, yeah.
Great vibes.
But they also had great vibes with Kirk wearing all of Justin's
always
jewelry.
have great vibes.
Yeah, Justin might just create great vibes.
That's true.
And O'Connell.
Okay. There's a lot of doubt in that segment. Yeah, Brew doubting them, Mangini doubting them. Nick is, doubting them, but also trying to act like he supports them. Well, they're good enough because the NFC is really not that good. If they were in the AFC, I don't think that they could win. I feel like I'm in the ocean. I just get hit with waves because I just I don't even know what to make of that, honestly. I didn't realize Justin Fields is the one that had made Joe Burrow transfer like that. I don't watch college football that closely, honestly. I didn't even realize that. That's pretty crazy. But yeah, listen, I watched that national championship game. That was an awesome game. But listen, there's a lot to absolutely love this team. I can't believe though that this team is 13-2, and we're out here saying that we question their ability to be a contender. If you want to bring the energy that they just brought, and again, that's why it's weird, because Nick's both doubting them, but then defending them against like the things that Mangini and Brew are saying. So it's kind of like this weird, again, this very bizarre dynamic. Because he's also saying like, Sam Darnold's not that good. Yet Sam Darnold was. You want to talk about superheroes versus civilians? Sam Darnold has been playing like a superhero. I'm not trying to figure out whether or not Sam Darnold is a superhero. I just don't care at this moment in time. We'll have that conversation maybe more deeply in the offseason because we won't have anything else to talk about. Whether we think Sam Darnold is a top quarterback in the NFL or not is irrelevant, because this year he is playing as a top quarterback in the NFL. He just is. Whether you want, again, no matter where you want to give the credit to, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. It's like, if we want to stick with this superhero analogy, it's like, are you a real superhero? Are you a mythical alien god from planet blah bloop bloop? Or were you given your superpowers from like Tony Stark or because of like a magic stone? It doesn't matter where it's coming from, man. What matters is that you're an actual superhero right now, with plenty of other superheroes on that team, like Justin Jefferson. So again, I mean, this team is 13-2. There's no reason to believe that they're fool's gold, or that is misleading, or like, well, look at the record when they went against these other teams. Do that for the Eagles. Do that for the Lions. Do that for the Chiefs, the Bills, the Ravens. I mean, like, again, it's just silly. It's silly at this point. I can understand. And like, that's why it made sense when we did this with the Dallas Cowboys last year and the whole tomato can thing. Like, that made sense because it was as clear as day. It was like so obvious that you had a team that was dominating bad teams and losing or playing like, oh my God, down to the wire against any team that was even remotely good or competent. That's not what's happening with the Vikings. It's just not. They have been wildly consistent. Are they a perfect team? No, I've said that a million times. They are not a perfect team. They are not a juggernaut. They're not the most dominant team that we've seen since 1977. Okay, like, sure, we can't say that. Sam Darnold is having the best year since, Dan Marino. Okay, fine, we can't say those things. And we love to be able to say those things about various teams. The Detroit Lions have more 40-point wins than any other team in the last 40 years, The Eagles have Saquon Barkley, who's on track to have the most rushing yards in the history of the NFL. The Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs have the most one-score wins in a row, ever. We love to do those things. And when we can say that, like, very specific, like, I don't even know, bat signal to be like, that's how great this team is. Like, that's what everyone relies on. To be like, well, that's why this is great. And it's, like, hard for people to, like, accept that sometimes a great team or a top team doesn't have some like singular trait that we could be like the quarterback. He's clearly a top 2 quarterback. But we have that with Justin Jefferson, though. But I guess it's different because it's a wide receiver. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, it just doesn't really make sense to me. Again, if you're going to have reservations about the Vikings, I'm fine with it. But do it with all the other teams that I listed. There's no reason why those teams should just be like, of course they're a contender. Of course they're a top team. There's no reason to do that for them, but then not the Vikings. And so that's why be consistent. Point out the pros and cons for all these teams, which is what I've done. I've said that about the Chiefs. I've said it about the Ravens, the Bills, the Eagles. I'm not here saying the Lions are truly a number 1 contender. The Bills, I don't know. I said, yeah, man, I can see it. I'm not doubting them. I'm not denying it, but there's just strong doubt. And yeah, It's, I don't know. I think it probably comes down to really those two things. One, not having a quarterback that people truly think and believe in their heart. That's either a top quarterback right now or an up and coming quarterback, right? Like a 23-year-old, 24-year-old who's like only played for like a season or two, kind of like what they saw with like a Jordan Love, a CJ Stroud, Mahomes years ago, Allen years ago, Lamar years ago. So they don't have that. They kind of see this as almost like an outlier, kind of like, what do I do with this? And they don't have some sort of like historic dominant, like, oh boy, you see what this offense is doing, or you see what this defense is doing. They're just a great team with great players and a great coaching staff. And like, I guess it's just not enough. And also it's interesting because if they blew out the Seahawks, let's say they won 35-10, then that would maybe garner that a little bit more. And I get it, because I fall prey to that too sometimes, and I try my best not to. That when you really get these blowout wins, especially against less than teams, and I get it, but I try not to, because I know football could be so fickle. Where sometimes when you do blow out a team, sometimes it's just like you were able to knock them out early and just avalanche on them. It doesn't always mean that you're great. Again, the Dallas Cowboys are just such a beautiful example of this. They are blowing out teams that are lower than them, and as soon as they played a team that was equal or greater than them, they lost. Same thing with the Dolphins last year as well. So it's tough. But also, if you're only winning these close margin victories like the Chiefs, it's also understandable why you're kind of like, I don't know, like how are you going to be able to keep doing this? But again, it also depends on how those close margin victories are unfolding, which is why people have doubted the Chiefs, because some of them have come down from like a fumbled snap, a blocked field goal. That's why it's not always these hard and fast rules. It's always like, well, here's some of these things that we know that can kind of help guide us into reach a conclusion about a team. Let's take a look at this and then kind of see, where does this apply? And if it does, why? And if it doesn't, why? And that's kind of how you slowly get closer and closer to the truth. But to just be like, the combined record is 34-60, that's a 33% win percent. Like, that's just kind of like lazy. That's just kind of like, let's look at the stats, but I don't really know. I haven't really been watching these games. What do the stats say? Oh, okay, they've been winning games, but against this, averaging to where they ranked. Oh, okay, yeah, they have a good record, but based off of the stats, I don't know. And again, we can do that though then about every team. You miss out some of the special. You miss some of the great defensive game plans that Brian Flores has brought. You miss some of the beautiful plays and the way how Sam Darnold has legitimately elevated this offense. You miss what Jefferson and Addison have done. You miss a lot of those things. But I mean, this is a tough year, because honestly, and again, I'm just a general fan. There's just so many teams that I really think are deserving to win the Super Bowl, especially not only just because of how they played this season, but also just like the franchises and the cities that deserve it. I mean, I just see so many teams that you're like, yeah, man, it actually would be a significant bummer for you not to come away with the trophy, to not come away, being on top. Like, it would be a bummer, because like, this is such an awesome story. And the Minnesota Vikings are right up there. Kind of like how the Detroit Lions had it last year. And I know Vikings don't want to hear that, but they did. They had that narrative. They had that story. They had that momentum. And it would have been an awesome story for them to win, which again, I know the Vikings fans don't want that. But the Vikings got that going for them this year as well. Sam Darnold, redemption. People have doubted them even when they're 13-2. I mean, you could see that. You could see Sam Darnold putting on that hat that says like Super Bowl winner or whatever. Vikings, and they're putting on the shirt, and they're interviewing him as the confetti's flying around and floating around, and he's like, yeah, man, no one thought that we would be here. It's so amazing. Minnesota Vikings are just so great. I'm so grateful for this opportunity that I've had. I got to thank God. And Justin Jefferson's wearing his glasses and celebrating and doing whatever he's doing. I don't know, does he have a kid or not? He'll be like playing with his kid in the confetti if he does have a kid. And he'll be saying the same thing. Nobody believed in us. Nobody said we could do this. And now look at us. Like you could see that energy there. Again, I'm not saying it's going to happen. I'm not predicting anything, but it's like you could see it. You could see it. But on the flip side, you also see them losing in the NFC Championship game, and then everyone's like, I told you, they just don't have the firepower. Sam Darnold just not good enough. You know, that's why I said the Vikings, they need to draft so-and-so. It's like, okay, I know. You're always right. And that's not anyone specific, by the way. That wasn't an imitation of anyone. That was a generic imitation. That's of the, I don't even know who. A combination of media and fans. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about the Minnesota Vikings? Do you think they have what it takes to win the Super Bowl this year? Do you think they should be continue to be doubted every step of the way as they have been? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single comment. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions. Let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We are building an amazing community here, and I absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all genuinely feel connected to. Something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.